The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free.
Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Right now I'm going to attempt to examine the Bible and dissect some of the churchy language we can easily take for granted, digging into history and languages when I'm able anyway to try and get at the heart of the text so that we can hopefully see and then apply at least some of what God has for you and me in these words today. Now, I'm not formally trained in Scripture. I'm just a guy using resources and a questioning mind to try and get at the truth, and that's something that we can all do, so I hope you'll do that with me. We've been studying our way through the book of Colossians and have arrived now at chapter 3, verses 1 through 4, which in the ESV says, "If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory." Up to this point, much of what Paul has written has been about establishing truths and correcting falsehoods in light of the competing worldviews that the Colossian Christians were facing. Starting in chapter 3, Paul shifts his focus to how the Colossian Christians should see their lives and live out their faith in light of these truths that he's been establishing. So looking at verse 1 again, it says, "If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God." In Paul's usage, the word translated here as if then you have been raised, doesn't actually call into question what follows, but should actually be understood as meaning since or because. So, since you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above. Paul is calling Christians to live in a new mode that reflects the invisible union with Christ that believers have by being raised with him. Paul wants his readers to value and prioritize the true and lasting things that Christ cares about. He doesn't name in this verse what is specifically meant by the things that are above, although we can assume that the verses that follow in chapter 3 explore some of them. The chief idea here seems to be that since believers have been raised and united with Christ, our hearts and lives should be invested in what he is invested in. The phrase, seated at the right hand of God, seems to be underlining a point made earlier that Christ is not merely equal with other spiritual beings, as the heretical Colossians claimed, but is superior to them, having absolute authority. Verse 2, "Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth." Although the first half of verse 2 may seem like a restatement of the phrase, "seek the things that are above," from verse 1, there is a noteworthy distinction. The phrase in verse 1 is about focusing our desires on things pertaining to Christ and his kingdom and pursuing them. Seek the things that are above. To set your mind on things that are above is to dwell on those things, making them a priority to consider and contemplate in your thought life. So verse 1 is about directing our desires, and this phrase in verse 2 is about directing the content of our thought life. When Paul contrasts things that are above by saying don't focus on things that are on earth, this should be understood to be an issue of priority rather than a command to exclude all thoughts of all things on earth. In fact, many things in the world, both natural and man-made, should be thought about because they're meant to serve as springboards for thanking and praising God. I think we see that in Luke 12:27, 1 Corinthians 10:31, and Psalm 104, verses 14 and 15. Examples of both natural and man-made things there that we're meant to consider, to think about, because of how they lead us to praising God. So rather than this being some command to live a monastic lifestyle removed from the world, just trying to picture God in your mind and just be frozen in that, that's more of like a Zen Buddhist type thing. That's not what's being kind of talked about here. We're not being called to remove ourselves mentally and physically from all things of the world. It's direction on how we should prioritize our thought lives. Our outlook on everything should be shaped and constantly renewed by a perspective that starts with Jesus and what he is about and the present and future purposes he has redeemed us for. And that is certainly a monumental challenge. I was just kind of struck by that as I was preparing my notes today. I was like, oh, Peter, you have so much room to grow in that area of really having your perspective and everything you do in life shaped first and foremost by that reality, those truths. Verse 3, for you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. In saying you have died, Paul calls back to his statement in chapter 2, verse 20 of Colossians, where he said, with Christ you have died to the elemental spirits of the world. And then he adds to this the idea that the believer's life is hidden with Christ in God. Now, the Greek word for life here doesn't merely refer to the state of pumping blood, but life that is real, genuine, active, and vigorous, beginning with the life we still have now in our mortal bodies, and then eventually becoming fully realized at our resurrection with Christ, as verse 4 implies. It's a life that is hidden with Christ in God. The nature of the full, rich life we have in Christ is that it cannot be taken away or diminished by any people or circumstances in this life. It's hidden and secure. Our lives may not be valued and appreciated in this fallen world, but their value remains secure and hidden until Christ returns and our true value is finally revealed and put on display. Paul wants his readers to solidify these currently unseen realities into their perspectives on all of their daily life, because they are the reason, these truths are the reason we should think about and prioritize things having to do with Christ and having to do with his kingdom. Okay, so what's in these verses maybe specifically for geeks? I think this is a great passage to remind us of our purpose in life and the value in pursuing it, even when it may look like a failed life to the world. We have all these ideas of success and what we should do with our lives presented in movies and entertainment, but I think that often there's the idea of a character being recognized, and at the end of the movie, appreciated and stuff, and there's something similar going on in this promise here for us, but we're not promised to get those accolades and things like that in this life. These verses get at something that I think comic book geeks can especially appreciate, and that is we have a secret identity. When Siegel and Schuster created the very first superhero, Superman, they gave him a secret identity. And I think it was Siegel of the two who said, people look at me and I'm very meek and mild, but what if they didn't know that underneath I was really amazing? That was kind of the thought that drove the creation of this concept of Superman, the secret identity and the superhero. And in so many of the best Superman stories, Clark Kent is overlooked and underappreciated, which at times is probably difficult for him, knowing, what he really has to offer. But he humbly lives as Clark Kent, secure in his identity, just allowing people to overlook him, to sometimes trample on him, as Jesus allowed the world to trample on him for sure. Secure in his identity and his value, because he knows things about himself that those around him can't see. That was the situation for Clark Kent in fiction. That was the real situation for Jesus. This is the kind of persistent, humble, and content intentionality that we are called to live in now. Unlike Clark Kent, we don't get to turn into Superman on a regular basis and gain the recognition and appreciation that comes with that and helping people. But we can be just as confident in the unseen reality of who we are and what we are on this planet for. Because we are here, like Superman is often said to be, we are here for a purpose. Jesus wasn't recognized for who he was either. It took his resurrection for even those closest to him to finally see who he really was. But he lived obediently in humility, like we are called to do now. And we're promised that, like him, when we are resurrected, we will finally tear away the suit and glasses, and we will soar with him like we were always meant to. If you'd like some help finding a good church in your area, I would love to help you do that if I can. Online resources and communities are good supplements, but by nature, they just can't speak to your particular situation like relationships in a local church can. The context for almost everything in the New Testament assumes that we're serving and building purposeful relationships in a local church. So whether you're in a church that just kind of lacks Bible-based intentionality or maybe not attending any church at all, if I can help you get connected to an authentic, compassionate, Bible-oriented church, I want to do that. You can email me at paeter@spiritblade.com, and we can look at some websites of churches in your area together. It is time again for Christian Geek Central's annual Game Save event, fundraising for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which provides free treatment for children facing life or death circumstances and shares its cutting-edge life-saving research with hospitals all over the world. You're still welcome to join the Game Save team by following the link in the description below. And once again this year, I'm drawing attention to our team's fundraising by performing a 24-hour marathon of video gaming that I will stream live on youtube.com/Christian Geek Central beginning 6 a.m. Pacific Time on Saturday, November 5th. You can donate or get more info by clicking on my fundraising page in the links below, where you'll also find incentives and rewards for doing so. For $5, choose a topic for me to share my sometimes overly strong opinions on during my live stream. For $10, you get the previous reward and a download code for a free copy of the Spirit Blade Special Edition audio drama. For $20, you get the previous rewards and you can choose a game for me to play during my November 5th live stream, pick a favorite, or torture me with something terrible or rage-inducingly difficult. For $30, you get the previous rewards and you can choose a song for me to sing during my November 5th live stream, pick an old favorite of yours, or just make me humiliate and torture myself with something no one wants to hear. And for $50, you get the previous rewards and a download code for every MP3 product at spiritblade.com. That's a $90 value. On top of that, I have set fundraising milestones that will unlock strange and unusual happenings as I reach them. At $200, I'll have a free download day for everyone who visits spiritblade.com on November 12th. And as my total goes beyond $200, I'll unlock increasingly more content for the free download day. And depending on how far beyond $200 my fundraising goes, during my November 5th live stream, I will cover my face in peanut butter and jelly while talking about horror movies, put on a pair of frozen socks and a frozen t-shirt at the same time, shoot water up my nose with a turkey baster, and have my wife Holly play a video game with me for 30 minutes. And if I reach a personal fundraising total of $500 or more, I will resume and complete, before the end of the year, my live stream Let's Play series for Fallout New Vegas as a Terminator. I like your gun. Attempting to do so in a single sitting. That could take as much as 20 hours or more based on how long tobeat.com averages. We will find out together if I reach $500. Finally, if I reach my $500 goal by the end of Thursday, October 20th, I will do a 4-hour live stream before the end of the year, playing only the most frustratingly difficult games in my collection. Since my last Get Good live stream, I've added some more titles to the list that will probably be like beating my face against a wall, and you can bring that about if you help me reach $500 by the end of October 20th. Now, there are some stipulations and time limits on those rewards and milestones, so quickly follow the link below to my fundraising page for all the details. I hope you'll be a part of helping me and the Christian Geek Central Game Save team do some good for some kids who really need it. And then please join me at youtube.com/Christian Geek Central for my 24-hour marathon starting at 6 a.m. Pacific Time on Saturday, November 5th. Hope to see you then.
Oh my gosh. This is all kinds of wrong.